Hey y'all, sorry for being a bit late. Been a busy week, but I had to get this out before the Sweet 16 starts tomorrow. These are my initial reactions very fast to the first round and second round of the NCAA tournament. That happened Thursday through Sunday. Obviously, was a very good tournament so far. Is a very good tournament so far. There is a lot of upsets. I definitely was very excited watching all the games and going into it from the first game, which was Maryland versus West Virginia, where Maryland came back from a 14-point deficit to the last game on Sunday night, which was what was the last game on Sunday night? Gonzaga TCU. TCU took the early lead, but then Drew Timme became Drew Timme. And yeah, everybody knows what happens, and that's March. So here's what I'm going to do. This won't take more than 10 minutes. I'm going to talk about my top three matchups, or my three favorite matchups from each region, even though there were so many that I liked, and then just talk about a few winners and losers. And then my Sweet 16 predictions are on my TikTok, but I'll run through them again. So first, in the South region, headlined by number one Alabama. Bama had a pretty easy road. They beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi by 21, and then they beat Maryland by 22. Bama is the favorite, and they're not only to win the national championship, or not only in the region, but to win the national championship. Obviously, Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, Javon Quinterly, they are a very intriguing story with what's going on with the program, but Bama had it pretty easy. And the 2 seed Arizona, we know what happened to them. But here's my three most intriguing games from that week. So first, Furman, Virginia, when we saw the number 13 Paladins beat the number 4 Cavaliers, when Virginia was up 4 with 12 seconds left before Furman hit a quick two, and then out of the timeout, Virginia, and Kihei Clark, who's a seasoned veteran who had the pass to keep Virginia in the 2019 NCAA tournament and win it all on a Mamadi Diakate buzzer beater, threw the ball away, and Furman hit a three to win 68-67. Talk about March. I mean, like, that was one of the first one of the first endings of the tournament, and to go out like that on a almost buzzer beater and the way Virginia lost, and not only that, is Virginia, team coached by Tony Bennett, that never happened. So that's so interesting. That was a really big moment. Two, Arizona Princeton. Obviously, this is one of the biggest wins of the tournament, and we'll talk about why it wasn't the one, but number 15, Princeton Tigers get their first win in over 40 years in the NCAA tournament over an Arizona team who I picked to make the Final Four. You could go check my bracket video. Arizona's loaded with Azulis Tabellas and Omar Ballo, Pele Larson, but their offense shut down. And Princeton, props to them. They really showed out, and obviously they're still in the Sweet 16. And that's why they're, spoiler alert, one of my winners for March Madness. Ryan Lamboy has been a really great story, and it just shows what March is all about. And third, first game on Thursday, the first game of the tournament, the real first game of the tournament, was Maryland, West Virginia. West Virginia got off to a scorching hot start. I thought that it meant wraps because Maryland has not been a good team away from home this year, but Maryland stormed back from down as much as 14, and they won the game, and obviously they got killed by Alabama, but you don't know how much one win matters to a team, and that's in their first year head coach with Kevin Willard. Maryland really turned around their program, bringing Jameer Young, and so, yeah, definitely interesting. Moving on, Midwest, number one update. Houston really hasn't struggled much. They struggled in the first half against Auburn in the round of 32 game, but they beat Northern Kentucky to, I guess you could call it a struggle in that game. It was wire to wire until they pulled away and won by 11, but 3 games. First one, Xavier, Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State, the 14 seed. Great story, obviously. Xavier struggled early on and towards the end of the second half, but they turned it on, and it was a really good game. Sudi Boom and Kobe Jones showed why they're one of the best guard duos in the country. Second game, Texas, Penn State. Penn State was one of the hottest teams in the country coming in with Seth Lundy, Jalen Pickett, Andrew Funk. They could shoot the lights out. Look at what they did to Texas A&M in the round of 64. Andrew Funk had 27 points in that game, 8 threes. But Texas showed how good they are between Marcus Carr, Jabari Rice, Dylan Disu. Texas is a team that's scary. If I had to pick who wins the West right now, I don't know. If I pick them, I'd still probably pick Houston, and I'm not going to spoil my predictions, but it was definitely a good game, and Texas pulled away, but Penn State came back. And then third game, Miami-Drake. This was one of my favorite matchups in the entire tournament. I picked the Bulldogs as a Cinderella as early as January with Tucker DeVries and their guard combo. And I did think they had a chance to beat Miami, but Miami had Norchad Omir back, and while they struggled, they went on a, I think, 16-1 run to take the lead late in the game, and that was really intriguing. Shows what March is about. Moving on to the East. First, obviously, the number 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson beats number 1 Purdue. Second ever 16 seed to beat a 1. Tobin Anderson, great story. FDU, a great story behind Stevenson. And what happened to Purdue? I know we make all these jokes in March, but this is new rock bottom for them. FDU didn't even win their conference tournament. They lost to Merrimack in the final, and it was because Merrimack was not allowed to qualify as they were making the transition to D2. And then FDU as a 16 seed won a game. That's why they're another winner in my March Madness, and I'll get to that in a second. How bad is that for Purdue, and how good is that for FDU? That's the first one. Second, Memphis versus Florida Atlantic University. I watched this game wire to wire on the plane, and Kendrick Davis is one of the best players in the country. I'm so happy he finally got his chance in March. He has a great story coming from SMU, and he leads the AAC in points and assists, and Memphis sort of got robbed at the end. Penny Hardaway's son had the ball, and they called a timeout, but they gave it to FAU, who ended up scoring. Yeah, that's just March. Sometimes people make mistakes. I'm not justifying the mistake because it was season costing, but what a game that was. And then third, Tennessee Duke. Duke's, again, one of the hottest teams in the country. A lot of teams pick them to win the tournament or make it out of the region. Obviously, we know how talented they were, but for every punch they threw, Tennessee threw one back by Santiago Vescovi, any of Rick Barnes' squad, and this is the first time they made the Sweet 16 since 2019, so good for the Volunteers. And then one more game I'm going to throw in here. Kentucky-Kansas State in the round of 32 was a great game. The talent on both sides. And Kansas State, with Jerome Tang, Keontae Johnson, Marcus Noel. Again, great story. That's what March is all about. They were picked to finish last in the Big 12. And they not only finished third in the Big 12, they are still in the NCAA Tournament. And if I had to pick right now, I'd probably pick them coming out of these. All right, moving on to the West. Kansas-Arkansas, the first game. If you talked to me before the first game, and I put it on my bracket too, I didn't have Arkansas winning, but I said if I had to pick on upside, I'd pick Arkansas. There was a reason they started number 10 though, country, between Nick Smith Jr., Jordan Walsh, Anthony Black, Ricky Council, Mekhi Mitchell. They are talented. And this game, again, end-to-end, Kansas, one of the best teams in the country. While they did reel into the postseason a little with 2 blowout losses to Texas, they were still a favorite to come out of this. They were the hardest opponent in the West, and Arkansas took it to talk about Devondre Davis, who dropped, I think, 25 in that game coming off the bench. Arkansas is a really scary team, and Arkansas-UConn is definitely going to be a great matchup. So that's the first one. Second, Northwestern UCLA. While there's a little bias to this, UCLA looked like they were going to blow out the Wildcats early on in this game. The Wildcats' only source of offense was Matt Nicholson. Their 2 guards, Boo Buie and Chase Audige, who got them to the point where doing nothing. UCLA was showing why they're the cream of the crop in the country. But then Northwestern stormed back behind Chase Audige going crazy, and Boo Buie started getting his points, and then it was really end-to-end the entire second half till the Bruins showed that they were just a better team. Just a great game. I don't even think that's me being a Northwestern fan. I think that's me being a college basketball fan. And third, TCU Gonzaga. This was very similar to Gonzaga's second-round game last year where they were the number 1 overall seed, and they were down 10 at half, both to TCU and to Memphis last year, and they stormed back behind the efforts of Drew Timme. You could see Andy Katz say it to Drew Timme, deja vu. And the Zags are a really scary team, obviously. Drew Timme, Julian Strother, Ronnie Hickman, Rasheer Bolton, they're loaded. You'll see how I picked them, whether on my TikTok or at the end of this video. So there's my matchups that I really liked. I obviously have liked most of them. And then let's go through some winners and losers. One, the winners. Fairleigh Dickinson, self-explanatory, number 16 seed, beating a number 1 seed for only the second time in history. Tobin Anderson, who just got hired at Iona. What a story FDU is. Small school, didn't even win their conference tournament, and they beat a team that was number 1 in the nation for over half the year. Second winner, Princeton, 15 seed, still in the tournament. It's the third straight year that a 13 seed or that a 15 seed has made the Sweet 16, and behind Ryan Langborg and their strong shooting, they blew the doors off of Mizzou. After beating Arizona, they blew the doors off of Mizzou, who, by the way, Mizzou's a top 10 offense in the country in KenPom. So, and they beat them by, how much did they beat them by? They beat them by 15, and I was at that game because that was a game before the Northwestern game in Sacramento. They blew the doors off them. So Princeton, they have a tough matchup against Creighton. I'll get to that in a second. But they are clearly on winner. And third, Michigan State. Talk about it. John Rothstein says all the time, January, February, Izzo. Tom Izzo's so good in March. This is Michigan State's 25th consecutive time in the NCAA tournament. And while they beat a USC team that's really talented in week 1, they didn't really pose that much of a threat. And then they beat a Marquette team who I picked to make the Final Four, and a lot of people picked to make the Final Four. Marquette won the Big East this year. While they don't have a lot of height, neither does Michigan State besides Sissoko. And A.J. Hoggard and Tyson Walker put the team on their back when it mattered most. And Michigan State is still dancing, and they will have a chance to play at Madison Square Square Garden tomorrow. I'm recording this on a Wednesday. This is Sunday. Losers now. Purdue. Number 1 seed lose to the 16th seed. That's simple. They have the Wooden Award, Naismith Player of the Year, and Zach Edey, and they still lost. 2, Arizona. Arizona had real title expectations, and they lost to Princeton, and they were beating Princeton for the entirety of that game until Princeton stormed back, and Arizona, who has one of the top offenses, averages over 80 points a game, struggled. So, yeah. And 3rd, Duke. I think that when Purdue went down, a lot of people thought Duke was the favorite in that conference, and then they beat a Tennessee team that has been going in the wrong, or they lost to a Tennessee team that's been going in the wrong direction and has had their stock down. They're banged up, and Duke still lost. And so I get it. It's Sean Shire's first year, but you're Duke. You don't lose in the round of 32. And yes, people will go, well, UNC didn't make the tournament. Duke lost in the round of 32. Definitely a loser. Okay, so there's my 10-minute, 30-second reaction to the first weekend. Now let me just go through my Sweet 16 predictions. So starting with the first game on, I'm forgetting what I did. Okay, first game on Thursday, Michigan State, Kansas State. I think Kansas State's too much for Michigan State. Kansas State with Marcus Noel, Keontae Jones, who runs a Big 12 offense. I don't think Michigan State's ever seen something like this season. Give me Kansas State. Arkansas, UConn, one of the best games with Arkansas and UConn. I mean, 2 teams that could score at will. Talent on both sides. First round talent on both sides, whether it's Nick Smith, Anthony Black, Jalen Hawkins, Adama Sanogo. I do think UConn wins. I think Adama Sanogo is the difference in this game. He's the leading scorer in March Madness so far. I don't know if Mekhi Mitchell or anybody Arkansas puts inside can stop him. I think UConn is a team. I'm not going to call them a team of destiny because it's not like they had a big story or stuff, but Dan Hurley's a great coach, and yeah, UConn's playing good basketball at the right time. Next, Florida Atlantic, Tennessee. I said this. I'll keep it short and sweet. FAU beats Tennessee. Tennessee's banged up. FAU plays an SEC-like offense. They could contain Tennessee. They shoot, they score, they play defense, and they have the height. Give me FAU going to the Elite Eight. Last game on Thursday, Gonzaga, UCLA, rematch of the 2021 Final Four where Jalen Suggs hit that half-court buzzer beater. Give me the Zags in the rematch. I think Gonzaga's offense is going to be too much for UCLA, who still has Jalen Clark. Jalen Clark, who is a finalist for Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. He's still questionable. I like Gonzaga here. I don't think anybody could stop Drew Timme. I do think Jaime Jaquez could be stopped to an extent by Gonzaga's defense, but don't hold me accountable for that because Jaime Jaquez is one of the best players in the country. But give me Gonzaga. Friday games, Alabama, San Diego State. While San Diego State is a great defensive team, San Diego State's never seen a player like Brandon Miller and Javon Quinterly. I think that Bama rolls San Diego State. Miami, Houston. I think that Houston wins this game. I think behind Marcus Sasser if he's healthy. But Miami is a really talented team. They have the experience. I think if a lot of people make Miami in this game, they won't be wrong. Houston's been battle-tested. They're vulnerable. But I do think that the Cougars win this game. Princeton-Creighton. Princeton's a great story, but I think when you look at Creighton there, between Ryan Kalkbrenner, Andrew Nemhard, Trayvon Alexander, I might have mispronounced the first name or said the wrong first name, but Alexander, Creighton is very dependent on their starting 5. I think they have the minutes, and I think they have the offense. They are stable, and I think that Princeton's run comes to an end here. And then last, Xavier, Texas, another great game. Texas, obviously, with Dylan Disu, Marcus Carr, Jabari Rice, and then Xavier with Sudi Boom and Kobe Jones. I'm going to go with the Musketeers here. I went with the Musketeers in my original bracket too. I think that and then Andrew Kunkel. I think Andrew Kunkel is the big thing in this game. Texas, I'm not going to say they struggle against three-point shooting teams, but three-point shooting teams give any team difficulty, and Xavier shoots the lights out. So I think that, and they didn't in their first round matchup. That's why it was so close against Kennesaw State. But give me the Musketeers to beat the Longhorns here. So there's my reactions and predictions for the next round. And yeah, more content coming on the way, guys. Enjoy the next few games.